Chapter 5, page 75. The Messianic Presence. The flow of the divine vitality rises once more high upon earth's shores. As in the past, its ebbing has again and again been raised upon the current of each fresh advance, and men each time have received into the common bosom a fresh impulse of perception and of moral vigor, by which, until it became well nigh expended, all the progressive lives upon this planet were meanwhile sustained. So now once more the full springtide runs high again, with hopes and with vast schemes, and with the intense delight for all who are prepared, or who can be prepared, now to endure it. If, in the qualities of these accessions of moral power, which break thus at long intervals upon the history of the world, there is each time none wholly unsuspected by the highest natures that have gone before, because in that which is divine, no germ of all that pertains to the full revelation can be completely absent, yet with each opening cycle of world development, some special force bursts upon the perceptions of those who watch for light, demonstrating its full readiness to apply to the direst needs of the age. A fresh fruition of the divine progress has sprung equipped from the training of the last period upon the vision of those who desire to see. In this day a truth, great and in such measure new, designs itself upon the experience of those who live for truth. As the central fact of that new departure which the human race is summoned now to take, we have spoken of its perception as no longer to be dissevered from that fullest perception of himself which God at this date awards to his maturing creature. The experience of all those who have learnt to stand in such manner as we have already indicated, free from the trammels of their own lower nature, and of low earth nature around them, proves that the brightest of the man of this age is no less a privilege than to live with the clear perception of the dual and sex nature of those divine currents which play as life currents throughout his system, and with a sensational apprehension no less distinct that the sex complement of himself has an actual existence, the denial of which arrests now every perfect growth within his breast. It cannot too often be reasserted that the sole question in the minds of those who seek truth must be the question of what is the highest and fullest attainment of which man at the present is capable. To hold any consideration as otherwise than secondary to this is to labor mentally and morally in a different plane from that on which the issues of life are here being discussed. But if it is well to live for no other purpose than to attain to the fullest possible fruition of the human growth, then a truly vital interest attaches itself to the discovery of all those signs and experiences which reveal the present intention of the Creator in respect of his collective creature, and the ardor of spiritual study will profitably be withdrawn from the work and revelations of the past and fixed, though with a grateful recognition of the accomplished value of these, upon the instant revelation and its destined operation in the living breast of today. There are people living now who have for many years held away from their lives all thought but that of receiving, for the service of their kind, so much of the truly divine vital power as their organic constitution, spiritual and material, may prove capable of assimilating, and in their several minds certain perceptions of the methods of divine law have sprung up in the train of experience with a like spontaneity. Such people are witnesses to the fact that the nourishing of the highest quality of human faculties requires, in order that they may not suffer suffocation from the excess of impulse which pushes them from within to grow, this willingness to receive with love the apprehension which now waits to bestow itself of the near presence of that other life, of which each one of us is but the half, and whose conscious companionship interweaves itself with the apprehension of the encompassment of the Being Deity. In the so-called atheism and agnosticism of the day, there is a relative truth, far deeper than can be apprehended by shallow natures, and which accounts for the fact that views thus designated are, to the consternation of many excellent and devout people, held by individuals whose excellence and devotion is not weaker than their own, though the channels for its application may be different. For it is relatively truer to understand the incapacity of the existing terrestrial man for apprehending the whole divineness than to assert, according to the fashion of aggressive religionists, what God is, where whose heir, who, advancing with the growth of their age and strengthening with its strength, deny that their faculties are so constructed as to grasp the origin of forces, and assert that they can both serve and enjoy while they recognize this incapacity, is in failing to perceive the constant accession of moral powers that human history records, and the rapid intensification of their evolution in man, which marks the period in which we live. It is only necessary today for a man to absorb himself in an uncompromising study of the moral basis of his nature, for him to ensure absolutely free play for each moral tendency within himself which he perceives to be the highest, and he will infallibly discover that he is a being, if not of a different, yet of an advanced order, as compared with the human nature of past ages, that the demands of his moral sense led him beyond the injunctions of past theologies, beyond the aspirations of past philosophers, in the disciplines that they impose, and in the ambitions that they excite. For man today, having absorbed a fresh ascension of the divine elemental vitality, aspires to nothing less than the happiness of his race, and is satisfied with no less a heroism than the subjugation of all individual claims to the claim that he makes against himself for that race. This holds true only inasmuch as he sternly cleaves a free passage through all the narrower instincts and ambitions to which he may be prone. The phenomenon which we are considering at this point is manifested in each such case at an earlier or later period. The persistent cultivation of the highest thing in the man against all odds of outer influence, of lower inclination, no matter how relatively at the outset of his determined course his best flicker of moral instincts may have been, led him inevitably upward through a career in which his moral stature adds to itself growth upon growth, with a rapidity proportioned to his ready obedience to the claim of each divinely tyrannical impulse. As long as his fortitude persists, he cannot help himself, but must rise into regions where the spiritual atmosphere is sensibly altered, purged from the fumes of the desires he has spurned, freed from the chains of will for self which he sought to break, and where the emotions that stir move not alone the breast with tremors, but leap throughout his being with quick fire, and where there falls upon him in the time of his new ripeness this knowledge that his God envelops him with a sea of life filled with ardors of marriage, and that he is married by complete sensation of soul and body to his complement, his real love. As this knowledge, responding again and again to the question of experimental demand for it, bestows itself with the spontaneity that belongs to all natural things, it becomes to his consciousness the initiation into a new order of existence, as it is the crown and ending of his anxious strife. Those living persons upon whose surprised perceptions of this phenomenon of the mental and physical companionship of the complementary being has forced itself during many years have discovered in each instance that they are united with a sympneuma, free from the gross external covering of outer body, with whom, in virtue of special idiosyncrasies of constitution, communication establishes itself by new developments in sense of sight or touch or hearing. While these, they learn to perceive a mighty order of nature in which may cooperate with higher beings of hitherto undreamed of type, whose mission it is to raise the human race out of its miseries by projecting into it their electricity of essence, an intenser quality of the divine force which their more superb organizations qualify them to absorb and to transmit. Yes, the world stands now before the drawn curtain of the new temple, unheeding or unperceiving, but this time the fresh mystery to be revealed as simple truth will not be imposed by the genius of prophet or of leader. The crowds who may possess it are unlikely the ungrown infants that have composed the masses of humanity at those past junctures when the world starved for moral food and was fed. This time the gift of knowing comes to the race in its relative manhood, but this time all the fullness of it is for each. Each one should put forth his own hands, and of his free will in the all-presence of his God undraw the curtain. Thus it is that today no man who has through patience and energy acquired faculties of an accrete and novel order, by which he takes sensational cognizance of the play through him of previously unsuspected forces, and knows their qualities, will dare to assert to another what the truth is. He knows that it is not for that other until such development in him has taken place as makes him sensible of it. He knows, too, that it is unsafe for another to endeavor to lodge high truths in his mental structures, unless they can at once be used in the outpourings of activity, for their high potencies wear upon the intellectual machinery if they stagnate. He knows, too, that in the little hints of present human wisdom, no one is sage enough to tell at what point of his friend's career that one is ready to test the reality of a suggested truth by his life actions, for the power to test the higher and greater truths will not exist in one who may have been as yet unable to test by faithful work any lesser truth instinct in him. The hour for the doctrine and the theory has gone by. The extrication from their present position of the indigent masses of men, round whose life the gloom only deepens by contrast with the increasing brilliancy of the civilization which is upreared by their painful labor, no less than the satisfaction of that opulent class who bear sadly, because of mental and heart stress, their undue share of the advantages of progress, requires alike that each member of the human family should now endeavor to recognize and educate within himself those germs of keen and vaster faculties to which, by virtue of his birth into this time, he is the lawful heir. As we stand at the threshold of this new era, each one may begin to play his part in it who wills to find the method of its philosophy, each one who will play his part in it who can work faithfully upon that method the hour calls. Unknown to most men, and but slenderly apprehended by a few, who enter through an unusual faculties into the realms of deeper unconsciousness, the seas of life that roll about the planet, enveloping not less each finest atom of rare spiritual matter present in every being than all its great external whole, have become fecund with fresh potencies which seek to impart themselves to the visible regions in things and animals and men. The world is uneasy under this pressure, despite its progress and its arts, as machinery groaning beneath a strain. Its wars diminish, but its peacefulness diminishes as well. It saves its labor, yet all its work increases at a more frantic speed. It multiplies its artists, yet ugliness of surrounding accompanies more and more all necessary and productive callings. Its high-level mark of virtue rises, yet the intelligence and refinement of its vice grows more accentuated. Its hour of strongest endeavor for all those things from which should result satisfaction, happiness, repose, brings to it only an unvarying turmoil, effort, and unrest. It cannot learn yet to assimilate the force that would enter into it. It is not altogether willing to see that it has some lesson entirely new to learn. It has not had time to become aware that the great God of all the worlds has designed to heap coals of fire upon the head of its stiff-necked conceits, and to deal so pleasantly with all its foolishness as to be waited upon it now with a new gift of genius and of powers, that it may rise to and possess, and so be humbled. This fact suffices. Those who will take it on trust to test it as fact by life operation need no further corroboration of it, mental or sentimental. To them, the significations of bygone history, as hitherto received, become superfluous. They need no prophecy, no study of vague records, no weighing of the opinions of the wise of later time. They may approach the fact and question it as though they had alighted but now from another planet to seek the present, the living truth in this. Their chances of finding by experience that the impouring upon human nature of subtle and new vitality of divinest quality is the greatest fact at this age will depend in no wise necessarily upon the grounds laid in them by the previous spiritual or religious bias. It will be all the same to Jew or Christian or Mohammedan or any other believer or disbeliever now. To each his previous thought will be help and hindrance too. Each, as he rises away from views he has outgrown, will nevertheless perceive in them more clearly than before a prevision of this fuller truth that descends upon his perceptions. No man will dare to say of his brother man, in this good future that is becoming present, that this or that in the past was better to hold or reject. The interjudgment of human hearts will modestly arrest itself with their moral rise. Soon it will be all as one in our fuller assimilation of divine qualities of thought, whether another has stepped upon the plane where all are equal in the common receptivity through sin or holiness, through fixed beliefs or gropings, or blind denials, through full knowledge of historic facts, or in ignorance of them. For it will then be seen that the new faith bestows itself as impartially to the sons of earth in their common need, as does the light of heaven or the repose of night. And those men who have a care for the welfare of their fellows will not now, in the presence of the stupendous life issues of our age, commit the time-worn mistake of dragging men unready to their good, but will refrain with awe from interference with each one to whom the Creator brings a problem that each must test in freedom and responsibility by such light as he may already have evolved from the chaos of previous mental conditions. Whether these rested on the forms of Judaism, atheism, Christianism, Buddhism, paganism, rationalism, or any other religious or philosophical system. The results obtained in the case of those people who, of whatever age or nationality or sex, have during the course of many years pushed forward investigations into the fields of spiritual and material existence in entire independence of all preconceived ideas, both of truth and of conduct, holding themselves at the same time strenuously aloof from all the influences of personal, family, or national sentiment, and adopting the standard of the pure aspiration to discover the divine intention for humanity and the human duty of rising into destiny, have led to the clear perception that human life in the future cannot fail to work into the harmony and beauty whose image glimmers fitfully to the consciousness of man. But the rational grounds of this perception, though occasionally strengthened by previous religions or philosophic opinions, are as evolved independently of them all, and frequently are obliged to struggle into being under the impediments presented by the limited nature of every past religion and philosophy. These people dwell in the unavoidable consciousness that the epoch of the good so long promised to the earth by the hearts of all its lovers, by the speculations of its high thinkers, by the prophecies of its seers, has begun. As a thief in the night, it has stolen it. It is useless to look ahead for it is here. Mankind at large is in actual possession, though not consciously, of that which a few members of it know by clear perception, the growing power for ideal condition, moral, mental, and material, the messianic presence in each breast. But the God force, in the fullness of its new descent, cannot act freely on the celibacy of human nature as it has existed in previous ages. The divine accession prepares as it comes, and comes as it prepares, and thus before, and with its coming now, is interinvolved the return into this world of the dual existence of the real man. Unless the men and women of this day receive or can acquire, by clear mental and physical perception, participation in the active and emotional existence of the being who is to them the sex complement, the love, let them name that being, spirit or angel, or inspiring soul, whom we term the Sympneumata, the whole dayspring from on high, of that which is now born upon the earth, must fail to visit them. For the quality of the intense vitality which God presses down upon us at this hour burns with some fuller ardor of his sex completeness than the world could receive before, and it cannot enter with its whole perfectness the widowed breast. Thus, the mental acceptance as a possibility and the education into states of perception of the biunity in divine and human nature become the conditions of the evolution inheritance which belongs to us. For mental rejection of any facts of nature, which are the facts of God, closes the avenue by which the vital forces at the heart of those facts impart themselves to our conscious sense.